Mets Musings is an unofficial, independent podcast covering New York's National League Baseball team. It is not affiliated in any way with Major League Baseball or the New York Mets.
Now it's time for some New York Mets baseball talk. Here's Gary Mack bringing you the latest news and analysis from Mets Nation and the world of baseball on another edition of Mets Musings.
And hello, and welcome to episode number 229 of Mets Musings. And we're live tonight on Google Hangout, and I have a very special guest with me this evening. You know, his blog, Mack's Mets, is probably one of the longest running Mets blogs on the internet, and it's one that I check out first thing every morning to get Mack's morning report. And the man himself is here tonight. Mack, welcome to Mets Musings.
Good evening. Good evening.
It's great to have you back again. Of course, Mack's been on a couple other times, and let's get right into it, Mack. The latest rumor, the crazy rumor in Metsy land is about Yoenis Cespedes maybe talking to the Mets about a 1 or a 2 year deal. What's your feelings on that?
Well, you know, I read that today, and it started from an unnamed blog, and it was picked up by at least one of the other blogs, and I think that it was very, frankly, if you ask me, I thought it was very unprofessional to bring to the Mets world a rumor, an unsubstantiated rumor like that, which really is that's all it was. It's you gotta have, you can't just say sources are telling me something. All right, you gotta have something more than that, even if you're a blog. I mean, I can tell you stories all night about things I did right and things I learned about what I did wrong, from that, and thinking I was doing something right at the time. All right. Trust me, the Mets have been in touch with the agent for Cespedes and has told them, we would love to talk to you about a deal and blah, blah, blah. And, but that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean, that doesn't mean that anything's been done. All right. Since what you just asked me, it's now in writing on Major League Baseball trade rumors that there was a deal an actual deal been offered by Baltimore Orioles, to Cespedes for multi-years, which he hasn't accepted. But I think the Mets will go as far as a 3-year deal. I think that I happen to believe that the Cespedes people know that if no one else comes along and offers them in 3 years, that they'll go back to the Mets, and Alderson might have one of those call me last and let me try to get involved kind of deals. That if we are to believe that Cespedes was as happy as he was in New York, but I've been around and you've been around long enough to know nobody really cares anymore. It's a business, and everybody tells you they love you during the season, but then as soon as it's all over, it comes down to the money, and you and I are going to give away a lot of money to a lot of people when we win the lottery until we win the lottery, right? And then we change our phone number. So I think that it shouldn't. I wish it wasn't written, about what was written about that deal, because I don't think blogs should do that. I think blogs should act like beat reporters and use that source material, better, and handle that situation better. I was surprised that MetsMusings picked up on that and quoted it more. You know, um, maybe I'm just don't care about who's reading me anymore, or I'm not trying to make any money with my blog. I'm just trying to write as accurate as I can. All right. Do I think that there's a chance that Cespedes could be a Met? I do. I actually do. But it's a long range. I think it's not a favorite. Yeah. Um, that's me. But I should shut up for a second and let you talk. But that's
No, I happen to agree. I think it's. I wonder sometimes if these stories are put out there because there's such a backlash that they don't have. They didn't go after Cespedes, and I just wonder. But I do think on his side of it all, I wonder sometimes if he's so tired of going from team to team every year that perhaps he was reasonably happy here and would like to stay in one place. And look, if my choices are Philadelphia or Atlanta or even Baltimore or the Mets, and the money's reasonably close, and maybe it's a year shorter, but I think I'd go with the Mets because there's more of a chance right now to get into the playoffs.
I I think he was honest when he said he loved to be in a Met and loved the experience of being in New York. I mean, I think New York really picked up on him, and he loved that whole thing. And then but then I've seen agents get a hold of ball players after that, and knock them back to earth and tell them, that it's a business. So if they can work out a deal for 3 years, and no other team offers him a 4-year deal, I think the Mets have a good chance of getting that done. And the money is there if it's for Cespedes, because it would. Can you imagine if somebody broke a story and some other team signed Cespedes for 3 years, and a writer wrote a story that the Mets could have had him for 3 years but passed because of lack of Wilpon wanting to spend money? I mean, you can imagine what the fan base and would pick up on that. I mean, look what we're going through right now. We just won the National League. Can you believe how much negativity there is in Mets land? And we're a National League champion team.
It is unbelievable the amount of as you say, the negativity that people are feeling after winning the National League and going to the World Series. Nobody expected that. I mean, we were just excited that they got in the playoffs, and then, when they beat the Dodgers and then to sweep the Cubs. I honestly thought that it was going to be a good series, but I thought the Cubs probably would win it in 6 or 7. And then to sweep them and to dominate them as they did, it just was incredible. And then to end your joy from that, maybe because we've been around a little bit longer, that we've seen it all and everything. And I guess if you rooted for a team they haven't had a championship in your lifetime, these younger fans, the cynicism comes in right away, and they've learned to hate the Wilpons. And I always say, though, the Wilpons aren't going anywhere. So get to it and just either root for your team and hope that they do the right thing, or go pick another team.
Yeah, they have no reason to sell because they can afford. They don't have to sell. They're very, very rich people. They don't owe a penny. They're complete debtless. So that's going to be a family business well after you and I are gone. But we started off last year, just like every other year. We were always trying to wondering what draft pick number we were going to have. We don't forget playoffs. We would get excited when the Mets lost. We were thinking we were going to get a better draft pick. Right now, all of a sudden, we win but we beat Chicago Cubs. And we shut them out, and Chicago beat us every game in the regular season. I mean, Daniel Murphy hits like 11 million home runs and 11 million games in a row. I mean, it was, you know, I mean, it was unbelievable. But, you know, the sad part about this is that, you know, if the Mets were playing in a fast pitch softball league, and this was a 7 inning game, we won everything.
Everything. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. We were ahead of every game in the 7th inning.
I think, yeah, except maybe game 2, where that was the blowout game, I think, right? If I remember correctly. But you're right. We were ahead in every game, and it was just a question of the bullpen. And to me, and really, if you think about it, Mac, Cespedes really did. Everybody says we need that bat, but he didn't do a thing in that play in the World Series, and yet they still were ahead in every game. It was really the bullpen and the defense that really cost the World Series. And you know, hopefully we fixed some of that. Now, we were talking a little bit before we went on the air about the moves over the winter and what they've done, and you and I are in somewhat of agreement. But let's discuss it. You were saying that you were happy with what the Mets did, and elaborate on that a little.
Well, you know, and a lot of my readers and a lot of the people who leave comments, my regulars, as I would say, and my other writers don't agree with me, because I think there's two types of Mets fans. I think there's a Cespedes-based, you know, anti-Wilpon, you know, fan, and then there's the people who forget where we came from. And I'm an ex-businessman. I owned my own businesses. I know what it's like to be heavily in debt, and I know what it's like to be owned by the bank. And a lot of people, younger fans, don't realize that when you owe a bank a lot of money, they control you. You know, I mean, it's you know, you just don't have the choice to just do what you want sometimes. So the Mets have to draw down on some of that debt, you know, whether you like it or not. But I think that, you know, still under a controlled situation, if you take Cespedes out of the equation, Sandy Alderson has done a remarkable job in the offseason of improving the New York Mets based on where we're going to be opening day in 2016 versus where we were in opening day in 2015. And you know, we just talked about how wonderful it was to win, you know, the National League championship. But what we forget is that on opening day last year, we were the Long Island Ducks, you know, and we really have a better team. You know, we have Michael Conforto in left field. We don't have John Mayberry Jr. You know, we have a healthy David Wright. We have a healthy Travis Deneau. We have a better infield. We have a better infield defensively. And you know this, Mac, you read me. You know how defense comes first with me. All right. Mm-hmm. And you know, I want that better middle infield defense first. And but even the extra bonus is that they're better offensively. So the Walker, the Stuber Cabrera, you know, they're not Cespedes moves, but they're good moves. I don't know what's going to happen about De Aza. I don't know. You know, I know I happen to know Juan Lagares. He's a very emotional ball player. I think he's going to react very positively with this. You know, I don't think he's ready to give up his full-time position. I think you're going to see a bounce back, but I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see. But I think, you know, if you put this out on paper, this team versus opening day of last year, and then remember that we're going to have the best, you know, starting rotation in baseball. This is going to be a very, very good team. I'm only disappointed in one thing. I haven't seen any and you just talked about this before just now. I did not see an addition in the bullpen. I would have liked to see, one more additional pitcher to make our bullpen better. I'm not saying we have a bad bullpen. I'm just saying we learned in the World Series, that we were vulnerable in the eighth and ninth inning. We didn't. Now this may solve, and I do want to talk about this tonight about what I think the new Mets template, because I think that, we're seeing. I think we're going to see that Alderson do the same thing this year as he did last year. After the trading deadline, I think you're going to see an additional amount of money spent on this team. I think the Mets will reevaluate the team at the All-Star break. We're in a weak division. We know that. At that time, we'll find out whether, in first place or we're in second place or whatever. And that's where you start slotting in your additional players. And that's when you get Jeremy Mejia back. And that's when you get, Zach Wheeler back. And, these could be two very, very, very important additions on the team. But I happen to think that the team's in pretty damn good shape. I don't know about, but I'm curious what you think.
I have to agree. I like the idea of having depth. I like Cabrera at short. I know he's a little older and he's not the player that he was years ago, but he's a professional shortstop, and he'll know how to position himself. And look, maybe it'll help with Flores. He can work with Flores. He can talk with Flores. It's just opens up more, and I kind of like Flores in that super sub role. You can move him from short. You can play a little bit of second if you need him. If Wright can't go every day, you can put Flores at third. Heck, they could play him at first base. He's played some of that in the minors. I mean, I kind of like that idea, and Flores is a better backup than anybody they had last year. I liked Eric Campbell. I thought he was a kind of guy that you really could use on a team because he could play outfield and third base, and even he took up a little bit of catching, and he may have a shot because he can play those three different positions. He might have a chance of making this team as a bench player and not see a lot of action. But no, I'm with you. I think they're better off than they were when they started last year. As far as the bullpen goes, I like the idea of bringing back Blevins. Addison Reed will be back, and hopefully he can regain some form that he had from a couple of years ago. But I'll tell you, what really interests me about the bullpen is there are some good arms out there, and I think they can build a bullpen with some of those guys. And I'm talking about Hansel Robles and Eric Goodell and Logan Verrett. And I really think that it was so important that these guys were on the team, got through a pennant race, a division race, got through the playoffs, and played in the World Series. And Mac, that experience, even if you're sitting on a bench, same thing with Plawecki, is priceless. You can't. The only way you can gain that experience is being there. And these guys were there, and yes, they lost, but they experienced it all. They experienced the celebration. They all went through the pressure, whether they pitched or not. Of course, it was a little more on if you were in the game. But I like Robles. I really do a lot. And I like Goodell, and I think they can fit in. And I think they're a better pick this year than we have with Carlos Torres, who probably will be back. And Blevins, I think I mentioned he'll be back. And look, they picked up that guy Smoker. I think there's enough arms out there to try to create a decent bullpen, and I think they have a chance to be a good one.
Yeah, I don't think Torres will be back. I mean, I happen to think that they're going to try to save that $800,000 and going in Goodell or someone else. But I think I agree with you on Robles, and I tell you, he has a lot of talent. He's a kid. Do you remember when they brought up Akil Morris?
Yes.
and how he wasn't ready.
Yes.
And it wasn't that he didn't have the talent. It was that he wasn't mentally ready. He was standing in City Field, and instead of playing, in Las Vegas to 3,000 people, it was like playing in the Coliseum in Rome. I mean, so it takes a mental. This game is mental, and you're absolutely correct. Correct. Robles has now gone past that. He's pitched in a World Series. He's seen it. This is a kid who can throw it over 95 miles an hour for at least 20 pitches, and that's the St. Louis template. That's what I watched St. Louis go to the playoffs every year with four guys in the bullpen that could throw over 95 miles an hour. And they kept bringing one after another, and I couldn't pronounce any of their names, and I don't know who they were, but they threw 19 pitches each, and then the next one came, and the minute their velocity went down, the next one would come along, and they actually ran out of innings. The game ended, and they won before they ran out of pitches, and that's the kind of bullpen you need, And we have that. We're pretty close to it, to be honest with you, because as much as I absolutely hate what Henry Mejia told him so, and I told him I write directly to him this year. I told him to take the damn Mets shirt off until he gets reinstated. I don't want to see him online anymore wearing the Mets shirt. But as much as I hate that, I don't want him to be dropped because he's a very talented pitcher. And if you put him in the eighth inning, and you follow that with Familia, and you get a seventh inning guy, and I still think that the potential big seventh inning guy is Rafael Montero. And you have those three, that kind of talent and that kind of 95 plus miles an hour, boom, boom, boom. That's that little bit we were missing. If you take Tyler Clippard out of the equation last World Series, you and I would be wearing different shirts right now. They'd say world's champs.
Well, that was really a shame because the guy pitched well when he got here, and I really think that there was an injury that remember he hurt his back. And he really wasn't the same the rest of that season. He said he felt better, but I have to think that there was something going on there because all of a sudden he just hit rock bottom, and he had pitched he was so lights out when he first come over, and I really don't think it was the pressure because he's been through pressure before. I just think that he either tired or got injured, and I think that bothered him. And with a back, it could be just a little thing sometimes, but it'd be enough to throw you off.
Right. Yeah, I think that there's a new fan that's out there. We're of the age that can talk about about it, and the fans today are a lot different. I don't see fans today enjoying this game. There's an anger that they have in rooting for their teams. I mean, I go back to the Brooklyn Dodgers when we called them the bums, and we always yelled at them and said they stunk, but we loved them. We absolutely loved them. Win or lose, we were there the next night to root for them, just like we were for the Mets and still are for the Mets. But the Mets base, the young Mets base, to a great degree, doesn't like this team, and I know and maybe it's all Wilpon based. I don't know. Maybe there's too many people writing stories about the financial side of this game. I don't know, but the sport has changed a lot because the fan has changed a lot, and it's sad. It's absolutely sad.
Yeah. I think you're onto something there. I don't think there is that passion for the team for the uniform. It's sometimes it's more the players, and I think there's too much of an emphasis on winning all the time. Now, I mean, we all love to win. Let's face it, but there was something about those 62 Mets, like you said, they were horrible. The fan nowadays, if you had a team like that, they would have ran them guys out of town. Whereas they were embraced and loved for their ineptness, essentially. And it really is a shame. But, you know, I think a large part of it is social media now, and everybody can be a critic and remain anonymous for the most part. And everybody can get their 2 cents in now. And I mean, you always had guys complaining. I can remember when I had season tickets, and you'd have a bunch of guys there for years behind you. And 1 year it was, they don't play the rookies enough. Go out and let the young guys play. You're spending all this money. And then they don't spend the money and they play the rookies. Then it's like, oh, they're so damn cheap. Why don't they go spend the money? So you can't please anybody, everybody. But I think you're onto something. I think the fan has changed, and it's just a different kind of attitude. And I don't think it's for the better. And sometimes I think the sport is aiming too much to please these people, and instead of just letting the game speak for itself.
Yeah, I try to follow when I follow along on the game. I try to follow along on Twitter, and I follow anybody that follows me. I follow them. That's just a professional in me. So if you're just a fan, if you follow me on Twitter, I follow you back. You know, so and I think that's appreciated by the people. But by doing that, I get my Twitter feed filled up with an awful lot of people, you know, with a lot of fodder, you know, and so I have a tremendous amount of fans that I'm reading what they're saying on feed, and I don't say a lot on Twitter. I just every morning, you know, put down, you know, what articles are on my Twitter, you know, and I don't have conversations on Twitter. I don't do that, you know. But you know, I mean, we could be in the first inning of a ball game and have won the first 2 games against the Cubs. And in the first inning, somebody hit a single in between short and third, and all of a sudden, 3 fans are saying, "David Wright sucks," and you know, it's unbelievable.
There we go. We lost this game.
You know, it's a whole different fan, and you know, and it's I'm seeing it at every aspect of the game. I read a story today about Joe McIlvaine, and I don't know if you remember Joe McIlvaine. He was the general manager of the Mets, and Joe McIlvaine was still is, and one of the great baseball scouts of all time, and I've had the privilege of going to games here in Savannah when I wrote for the newspaper and sitting with the scouts. And that, you know, one of the great enjoyments is going out to the stadium, you know, 3-4 hours before a game and just shooting the crap with all the scouts, you know, and talking off the record about a bunch of about stuff. Mack, they don't exist anymore. They've all been fired.
Well, because I think they've gotten so much into this sabermetric stuff,
right?
That
right.
It's kind of crazy that I said this the other day, or either on this show or another show I do, that give me an old scout any day. I don't care about all these numbers. Have their place. Don't get me wrong. I'm not completely, you know, saying that the numbers are useless, but you can't tell a heart. You can't tell a pop by numbers. You know, there's a sound that like you're listening to a pitcher and that ball hitting the glove, and you just can't tell that with the numbers. But unfortunately, this is the latest trend, and everybody's going to this kind of trend with all the big numbers, and And
Starting to sound like Clint Eastwood now.
yeah, from that movie, exactly. The Pop. A quick Joe McIlvaine story, though. You saying what a great scout he was. I went to a game once at Shea, and I went early. I was down at batting practice, and I was with my brother, and we're discussing things, and he asked me about some guy they just called up, and I'm telling him. And all of a sudden, this voice comes behind us and says, "Oh, so what do you think about that guy? And what do you think about this guy?" And I turn around and I go, I was like shocked. I said, "Aren't you Joe McIlvaine?" And sure enough, he was sitting in the stands before the game, and he was talking with fans. So we had a little discussion about what I thought and what the heck do I know. But that was the kind of guy he was. He got like you said, you go early and he'd shoot the breeze with the scouts and stuff. And
McIlvaine is now leaving. McIlvaine is now leaving baseball. He can't find a job.
Jeez, what a
Nobody
shame,
will hire him, and it's unbelievable. And he said that they're hiring 30-year-olds as general managers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a whole different game now. I mean, now it's all analytic. And when you just mentioned about something like that, I happened to be in Savannah. In Savannah, the first year in 2007, Juan Lagares was a shortstop. He was a shortstop prospect. And there were the great prospect infield that year was going to be Juan Lagares at short and a kid named Hector Payo at second who didn't make it. And Juan Lagares hit like 210 and it looked like it wasn't going to work out. Tim Tuffle was the manager. And right near the end of the season, we'd go out there early, so we were out there for batting practice and infield practice and fungo and all that. And Lagares was out in right field for some reason, just standing out in right field with a couple of the outfielders. And Tuffle always was a control freak, so Tuffle always hit the ground balls in the infield and always hit the fly balls to the outfield and would call where to throw. While he's hitting the balls in the outfield, and it gets to right field, and he hits a fly ball, and he calls that one he calls is to throw it to third base. Right. And Juan Lagares catches the ball and throws it on a fly from right field, and one hops it to the third baseman. And Topple looks around, and everybody around him what? And he goes out, he says, "You again." And he hits another one out to him. And Lagares throws the next one on a fly right to third base. This time it was, I think, a 2-hop, but same speed, lightning speed, right to third base. Boom, boom, boom. And that was when Juan Lagares became an outfielder.
Wow.
And that would never have happened. It was just, and I was there when I saw that. But you talk about the pop, and you talk, it's why I still think there's a good chance Brandon Nimmo could wind up to be a decent, hitter, because I've seen that swing. I mean, he had from the day he became a Met, he has the swing. He hasn't been healthy, and you just don't know. But there are some ball players that are just natural ball players, and you see that, and you're not going to learn that on a computer. That just isn't going to happen.
Exactly.
I hate to sound like an old fart, but that's what I feel.
Well, it's funny that you brought it up. Last year was at a Cyclones game, and when Michael Conforto came up, and I was telling all these guys at work and stuff, this kid can hit. There's just something, his swing, the way the sound of the ball off of his bat. And the way he can take everything the other way, he can pull, seems to do it all. He's going to be a good hitter. I never thought he would be this quick, his rise to the majors. But he got to the Mets and look at the job he did. I think, I don't know what he ended up at. What was it, 260 or something? And roughly he ended up hitting. But boy, that's pretty good for a guy that just comes up and with all of that pressure, and he's got a World Series home run now. I mean, again, another guy that the experience is priceless, and I hope that this year he can break out a little better and really show you what he can do over the course of a whole season, because I think that'll be exciting. But you mentioned Juan Lagares, and last week I had one of your other writers on. I had Stephen Gilbert on, and he wrote an article about Alejandro Diaz, and he wasn't a big fan of signing Diaz, and I think it's, as the discussion went, I kind of felt that the Diaz signing was to push Lagares a little bit, and Lagares better than I, but I think maybe, first off, I think he was hurt last year. Secondly, I think maybe he had a little bit of the the idea that he had the position. He won the Golden Glove in 2014. Maybe not that he came in out of shape or anything, but maybe there was a certain relaxation there, and maybe he needs to be pushed a little bit with that. And so I was just wondering, what's your take on that?
Well, as I mentioned, first of all, before, he's a very emotional ball player. Okay, so he whether he's in a good mood, whether he's a positive or negative, his game goes that way. I don't think Juan Lagares is ever going to hit over 280, 285. Okay, but that's fine as long as he has the can produce the kind of defensive game that he can, and he can be surrounded by players like Randy and the potential of Conforto. You don't have to have another 30 home run potential home run hitter, and there aren't a lot of them around. So baseball fans, trust me when I tell you this, they're the exception to this game. Okay, if you want to win a lot of games like Kansas City and stuff like that, have 7 guys that can hit 20 to 25 home runs and have a bunch of doubles. That's why we're not world champions today. Okay, I mean, have a full in-depth lineup. That's what you want. All right, but I think that Juan Lagares' year 2 years ago, everything went perfect defensively. I'm not saying that he did anything wrong. I do think he got a little lucky. Yes, he deserved probably the Golden Glove, but everything worked. It seemed like every throw went everywhere. But he was injured last year. He did have an injury, and he was gun shy. And you could see that. You may remember, Gary, if you watched some of the throws he made, and some of the throws he made that he didn't try to get to home plate. And he threw safely into second for the cutoff man. And then they showed a picture of him back there. And look at what I'm doing with my arm. He'd be moving his arm back and forth to exercise it to see if it was working. His muscle, he's had pain in his arm. And he was gun shy to throw. So he just spent the entire season not playing at 100%. And a lot of us, including I, thought he was going to be operated on. And it turned out he didn't have to be. But what I'm hearing now is that he's playing defensively at 100% in the winter balls. And he's thrown out a number of players. So I think in his case, he's going to get his mental confidence back. And if he gets his mental confidence back, he's going to let his arm loose again. He's going to let it go. And then we're going to see, and it's only going to take one time he throws it to home and gets somebody out that he's got his game back. And that's what we want, and he's always going to bat eighth on his team. So, So let him play defensive center field, and I don't happen to think we're going to see a lot of De Aza playing. I just don't. I mean, uh, I think you're right. I think the signing of De Aza was signed early and for 1 year, simply as a motivation to get Juan Lagares mentally back to his game.
I agree, and you spoke about Brandon Nemo, and there's a guy that's a little bit of an enigma so far, but he's so young still. How do you give up on a guy at this age? What is he? Is he 22 yet or 21? Um, and he's, as you say, he's got this swing. It's just maybe it's just not coming together yet, and boy, you'd hate to let a guy like that go and have it come together somewhere else.
Yeah, first of all, you mentioned first about Conforto. You followed him in Brooklyn, okay? Conforto has never really put up any, super duper great numbers, as a professional. Yet he was had good numbers in Brooklyn, but he never had powerful, slugging and a lot of home runs. And he didn't, do that much as a Met. He had a great home run in the World Series. And that particular night, he put on a home in batting practice. He put on a display, I understand, that was unbelievable. He hit like 20 balls straight out of the, all of a sudden he became, Ted Kluszewski, but he, but he still is a question mark. I mean, we're all expecting Michael Conforto to be the greatest ball player, and I think he's going to be a great ball player. But he's not supposed to have been a Met last year, and so we've got very lucky with him. What he did, Nemo or whatever, and I've been accused of being very critical about him because I wrote a real critical article when he was drafted, because I had nothing against him. I had something against taking a first round draft pick that early and picking a kid that didn't even play high school organized ball, played American Legion ball. You don't waste a pick on someone like that. And when he came to Savannah, I walked over to him and I just said, I hope you didn't take it that wrong. I really wasn't saying anything about you, or just saying about and he wouldn't say a word to me. But you and I and everybody else cannot analyze him yet because his game hasn't developed. He's been injured too much.
Yes, that's the other.
And it's like Steven Matz. You and I may like what we see so far about Steven Matz, but he's been injured too much. We don't know yet there's still some answers to be done there, but Nemo needs 450 to 500 at bats in Las Vegas, and just have a full season and use that rarefied air to his advantage, and just get his game, because it's getting to a point where we're going to need him in Queens, and we'll see what we have. We don't need him this year, but we're never going to know whether he was worth a draft pick until he heals, and we're going to find out if he ever heals. Sometimes some of them never do. So I haven't given up on him yet. I just would I don't know how to evaluate him.
Yeah, I think it's tough at this point. And again, like you said, he's still young, and the fact that he has been injured a lot and hasn't gotten a lot of playing time. Maybe they would be better off starting him in AA this year, so he gets more bats there. I don't know. My guess is, like you say, he's going to go to play a full year at Las Vegas. But
see, I see this team in a whole different. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I see this team being operated. I see what they did last year And I'd be nuts if I didn't do the same thing. I have a team that never made the playoffs, and all of a sudden, I let them play on their own until All-Star break, and then I filled in the positions and I won the National League. Why would I not do that again? All right. So I now build a better opening day team. I'm going to let them go out there. I'm going to let them play against in a division where at least two of the teams are horrible. So I can't possibly have a worse record than Atlanta and Philadelphia. All right. So let's see how that goes, and then I can go into the trading deadlock. And if I got an outfield problem, fine, I'll trade for Carlos Gomez. There's another whole group of people that'll be at the end of the contract year, and I can do this. We can do our own version of how the Yankees operated for a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
And Terry Collins doesn't want to play rookies anyway. So I mean,
the job Conforto did. So, and you mentioned,
I don't think if you really got him over the scotch and asked him off the record, I don't think he ever wanted to play Conforto.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
Now
But,
what about Terry Collins? I mean, whether he's taken a lot of heat. He took a lot of heat last year, again in social media. Not the most liked guy, but in retrospect, when you look back, he really did a good job. As far as he it was, we were saying, they're better this year opening day than they were last year, but he really kept those guys together and in that race until Sandy was able to bring in a Uribe, a Kelly Johnson, and a Jonas Cespedes. And to me, he did a terrific job last year. And I know he's not, the greatest X's and O's guys in the dugout. But one thing I got to say, from everything I've heard and seen, those guys love him and they love playing for him. And that's really, in this day and age with the managers, I think that's 90% of it now.
Yeah, the players do love him, and it really, there's very little love in that game. Most baseball players cover up their feelings a tremendous amount. They cover them up from the fans. They cover them up from the beat reporters. They're very stoic at most of their approach to everything. There's very little emotion that they can show, and they love him. They absolutely love him. It's like a second father, And he isn't. He does make mistakes, but there are people who don't like him, and I've been critical of him, and I don't think he makes the right moves pitcher wise and late in the game. I don't think, but I think it's very easy to criticize somebody, when a team doesn't win. But I go back to the same thing. We won the National League. I saw excitement in that stands that I haven't seen, since 1986.
Exactly.
I mean, I have never seen people so excited to be a Mets fan. I have never seen a city so electric as that town was. During the World Series and the playoffs, everybody was a Met fan. I mean, and I have no idea how, since from that day, which was October, and now it's January, everything's been flushed down the toilet, and all of a sudden we're a horrible team again. We have a horrible manager. We have the wrong ball players. We're going in the wrong direction. And and I'm telling you, I turn 69 years old next month, and Gary, it's getting tougher to keep this blog going. It really is. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to do the best I can.
I'm sure it'll be great. Two more things. You're without a baseball team now there.
Yes. And that's fine with me because I really didn't I didn't have any love for the current management of that general manager of that team. The owners I knew from but they were Atlanta based and they really were quite removed from it. The town of Savannah never appreciated the team, never supported the team. So it's sad that I can't hop in a car and go to a ball game. But I medically been unable to do that for 2 years anyway. So you know, but it is strange not having the team that put Mack's Mets on the map, as you would say. Because if I didn't have a Savannah Sandats, I wouldn't have been a reporter, writing about Savannah Sandats. And I wouldn't have a reason to have the blog. So I wish them well in Columbia, even though it's the same owner and the same general manager. but
And finally, I was reading an article today, and this is a pet peeve of mine, and I want to get your opinion on it. The Mets traded, of course, Jonathan Neese to get Neil Walker, and Neese has come out a couple of times with some, not nice statements about his stay here at the Mets, and he made another one the other day. He said it's always a great feeling to be wanted, and I've got that feeling here. This is talking to Pittsburgh Press, Pittsburgh Tribune Review, and it just annoys me that, you know what, you got your opportunity here. It's not that big of a world, the world of professional baseball. You never know when you may need a job again. So why go this way and be negative about your former employee? I mean, just go and say, I enjoyed my time there. It was great. Time to move on. They felt it was time to move on. That's it. I don't know what your thoughts are about that.
Well, you're right. And let me tell you twofold in that. About John Neese. I was allowed in the Mets clubhouse with official Mets passes for 4 years because I was a beat reporter for the Savannah Morning News owned paper. So I could go to spring training, not as a Max Mets person, but as a newspaper reporter. It really bothered all the blog writers that I was in there, and frankly, it bothered people like Adam Rubin and the rest of them too that I was in there. But I saw the Mets in a dimension that most people didn't. I got a chance to see them inside the clubhouse and get to know some of them and have some more of a relation, any kind of relationship with them. Right? John Neese never liked being a Met. I don't know why. I don't know why. He never smiled. He was never in a good mood. He signed a deal with them. But I remember going back to pitches and catches one year, and he came in after he had a leg injury, and I walked over to him and I said, "How you feel?" And he looked at me and said, "Who are you?" I mean, you didn't have to treat me like that, But he never liked, obviously, being a Met. He was not a. Now there are people who just don't have the personality. Carlos Beltran didn't have the personality. He was not a person with a great personality, right? But it was not held against him because people didn't know that much about him. The other thing that many people do know is that John Neese did not like Terry Collins. He didn't like playing for Terry Collins. And you could see that every time Collins came out of the mound and asked for the ball and took him out of the game. He did not want to come out of the game. So Yes, you keep you that you keep your mouth shut because you never know what's going to happen. And early on in my career, and I'll tell a quick version of this. When I was a salesman in the radio industry, there was another salesman at another competing radio station in New York that just irked me all the time. And I went out of my way to go over to him and say to him, F you and stay out of my way, and you're nothing but a little pissant or something like that. There'd be no comments on the most powerful person in the radio industry. Wound up the president of CBS and then Sirius XM, and the person who made Howard Stern who he was and became the richest person in radio. And Mel probably went out of his way 7 or 8 times to prevent me from working somewhere. So you never know where it's going to come back. Go out of your way to not say bad things about people.
Exactly, and as I say, that's a pet peeve of mine. And I always say the best example of doing it the correct way was Jeff Francoeur when he got traded from the Mets, and he was very gracious, and that's what you have to be. And
it's funny you just said that. Let me just quickly get this in. I know we're ending up here, but I was going to just say in the same thing. I have never. I mean, clubhouse chemistry is so important, and I have never seen a ball player with a better clubhouse chemistry than Jeff Francoeur. He lit up the Mets clubhouse every time he was in there. And, there are certain players that the players just, when Francoeur was traded by the Mets, it was like a funeral that he was lost, because he was in that clubhouse, in their inner sanctum. He was the guy that made one of the guys that made that team.
And I always that's my example, because he was so gracious and really, as a fan, he would, he's the type of guy you'd want to come back again, because he enjoyed it here. He wanted to be here. And some of these guys, like you said, they don't want to be. And it just strikes me as, one more thing, I guess, before we go. With Matt Harvey, sometimes I get the feeling that he's a little like that. He's not happy to be here. And I don't understand that. You're on the biggest stage. You've just played in the World Series, and I wonder how much of that is the Boras influence.
Go back and watch that ESPN special about Matt Harvey. With the special that they had. Look at the arrogance he had from the time he was in high school. Look at how he refused to sign. The first time he was drafted, because he didn't get offered more than, and they said to him, I had to get $1 million as a bonus. They said, what if it was $999,999? And he said, no, $1 million. I mean, Matt Harvey was that arrogant from that day. I didn't say he wasn't talented, all right? But Matt Harvey will never, ever stay as a Met without testing free agency. And Scott Boras is perfect for him. It's a perfect match of the chance. We have absolutely, I think, no chance at all in keeping Matt Harvey as a Met. So I wouldn't spend any time wasting it. I would spend a lot of time trying to long-term deal Jacob deGrom or some of the other pitchers, and get some long deal. But Harvey's not going to stay. He's just not going to stay.
And I would try moving him next season, because I don't think
I would too. You could get 2 everyday ball players and a third prospect for him.
Yeah. That's the direction I would take with him. And he keeps talking about this big payday, but I got to be honest with you. The guy's talented. I'm not arguing that, and I think he's terrific, and I root for him hard when he pitches. But he's got to do something before his free agency comes about. You can't win 10 games every year and then want a Matt Scherzer's contract here. you've got to go out and win 19 games. You got to win 20 games in a season, or 18 or something. You got to do what Greinke did if you want that kind of contract. Just because Scott Boras says you're going to get that kind of contract, I'm sorry, you got to go out and do it. I think to a certain extent, I think DeGrom has accomplished more in his short career as Harvey has. He's won the Rookie of the Year. He's been an All-Star. He's been in the World Series, as is Harvey now. And Harvey's been an All-Star, but he's got that Rookie of the Year thing in there. That's a little extra accomplishment, and I mean the numbers are practically similar. So
I think he's going to have a great. I happen to think Harvey's going to have a very good season, but I think he should be traded at the end of the year. I think the new star on the Mets and the future SP1 on the Mets is Noah Syndergaard. I think he's he's the man. I mean. And you would be absolutely nuts. I mean, it's too early to sign him now. You don't have to. All right. The next guy, as I was writing for next week, the next guy you got to sign into a long-term deal is Familia. You do this based on arbitration. You do this on 1 year. You got to look at who's eligible in 2018 and 2019. You don't offer somebody a 5-year contract when you got them under control for 6.
Right.
And there's a certain point you do that, right? But Harvey, I think Harvey's, I think you're going to see enough wins out of these guys, and Harvey's going to, even whatever Harvey has done, look at his ERA. It's still been a wonderful ERA.
Yeah.
He has a tremendous amount of talent, and he can get you 2 of anything you want. You need a center fielder, you need a shortstop, you need a third, you need a replacement for David. You can get 2 great ball players for Matt Harvey, plus a third. I mean, you can walk away with 2 of great ball players from the Boston Red Sox. Trust me, and you can change this team overnight.
Well, I want Mike Trout.
Well, the world is in love with Mack Harvey. I mean, we don't appreciate him as much as the baseball world is in love. But that's us. We're the team that loves to hate our team.
Well, Mack, as usual, this has been great, and I really enjoyed it. And thanks again so much for coming on. And we're going to talk again during the season. And I just hope it's a good season again. And let's play as well as we did last year, and try to come as close as we did.
Yeah, and just let everybody, let's just enjoy your team. Just put the game on and enjoy it. Root for the team. Make some popcorn like in the old days. Enjoy watching the game. It's not going anywhere. It's 9 innings. It's the slowest game on earth. I mean, but just sit back and enjoy it. We were the standing National League champs. I mean, come on, folks. Good night, everybody.
Good night. It says it all right there.